What's up there, Metal Summoners? We are right back with you. We are going to talk a little bit of comedy fun things. It is all good. We are turning this into the Metal Summit meets backlines
Punchlines and
punchlines and
That's okay.
backlines.
My mom messes it up all the time.
We are getting into some comedy. Friend of the show, friends of colleagues of our show, we have got Courtney Cronin joining us right now. Courtney, thank you so much for taking some time. Welcome to the Metal Summit.
Thank you guys. I know I see you at this and I'm like, ooh, Metal Summit asked me on this year. All right.
Absolutely. So we're going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to dedicate this to former Metal Summit alumni Bobby Dreyer, as our own personal little gnat, who we are going to have a little bit of fun. But again, Courtney, thank you so much. And of course, you are very much a regular when it comes to Rockin' Pod.
I've been here since the first one.
And how do you look at this? Because there's so much going on. You've got the shows. You've got your comedy show that we'll talk about. There's vendors. You said you haven't taken photos or done enough shopping.
No, not yet. I got to do a little shopping. I'm going to buy Jeannie's book, Hollywood. And then I want to buy that trivia book because I got to do some homework.
Oh.
Sonny Pooney was like testing me. I knew one. I didn't know any of those answers. I was like, I got to get my shit together. No, I haven't done my shopping yet. So
Katie's here. Katie Doty with Jack's books.
Yeah, she's my friend. I'm so glad she's here. Actually, I talked to her about this. I'm like, you need to come to the Rockin' Pod and talk about your book. I did.
Oh, that's awesome.
We were in an Uber on our way to the Kiss Cancer Goodbye with her husband, and because he was playing, and I've always gotten along great with Kate. So
yeah,
she's
fantastic. She was on our show when she was doing the initial big press tour for the book, and then I was just talking to her over at her table with my wife, and we were just like, hey, and she was like, wait, am I on your guys' calendar? She's like, no, wait, I'm not. Like, can I request you? I'm like, well, for what it's worth, we have 45 minutes before our first official interview. If you just want to cruise down to the corner, she's like, I'm on my way. But no, she's great. So it was awesome to get to hang with her. And we were having a fun thing, too, where it was like I had asked her, she was like, because I was like, if Chip was with you, because he was going to be here.
Yeah.
Would you guys be sharing a table? She's like, that's a really great question, and I have no idea. Well, that was my joke, because if anybody who's gone out and seen Enough's Enough live, that merch table is stacked.
There's lots
of merch. I'm like, if he was here, I feel like there'd be a book on the, space for a book on the table.
Yeah, you'd have to, creep over his merch,
it would just be
It helps that he's so tall,
Oh, no, absolutely. But, so, how did you get involved in Rockin' Pod, since you're an OG of it?
Weirdly, I met Chris through Ken Mills, who's the Podfather, as you know. And Ken, I'm a big Monkees fan, and so a friend of a friend was like, "You need to meet Ken Mills. You guys would really get along." So we talked on the phone. We just got on the phone, started chatting. We talked for 2.5 hours, and I'm like, "Oh my god, this is the coolest guy." And then he's like, "Oh, you got to meet this person and that person." So I started doing some podcasts. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so much fun. And then this got put together shortly after, because this was 2015. So 2 years later, this came together. And by that point, I'd made a lot of friends in this world. And then opening for Craig Gass on the Kiss Cruise, I met even more people. Actually, Joe Polo's not here this year, but Joe and Sonny and Steven and all those guys. And then it came together, and I said I'd really like to come, and we didn't do any real activities at that point. There was we just did a hang at this bar, the Scoreboard.
Oh.
We did a big hang at the Scoreboard because everybody stayed
over there. We're in the hotel
there.
Right next to it.
Okay, so we all were over there. And then we had the event the next day, and then God, I don't even remember what we all did that night. I think we went to karaoke or the night before. Oh my God, it's terrible. I don't remember. But and there was only maybe a handful of podcasts there that year, and just a few guests, but we had so much fun. And then the Cruisers, or not the Cruisers Jam, I'm sorry, that's on Monsters. The Podcaster Jam was just so incredible and fun. And everyone just had such a good time. They're like, oh, we got to do this again. And then it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And I said, well, let's put together a comedy show for the next year. So I put together the show at Zany's and invited Craig and invited my friend Earl Skakel. And they came, and we did the show at Zany's. This is before I started Punchlines and Backlines. I started that in 2019. So then we brought that here. right after the COVID lockdown, and our first version of that here, we put all three of the rock and roll residency guys, now Aces band, now Accept. They're all just so busy. Ryan Cook and Jeremy Asbrock and Philip Chouse, they all did our first Rock and Pod punchlines and backlines. All three of them.
Oh, man. Well, I love the fact that you got Eric Martin out of his shell for punchlines and backlines.
You know what? Eric was already out of his shell.
Okay.
He's a chatty man.
Well, he definitely is.
Yeah.
But I was like, the idea of that, because we were also here for when you had, I think it was Ryan also doing the punchlines and backlines, and he was talking to us because we've had Ryan on the show. We love him.
Oh, yeah, he's great.
And it was like, he's like, I have to do this comedy thing that I said yes to, and I don't know why I said yes to that.
They all say that, and then when it's over, they all go, I'm so glad I did that. That was so much fun, because all three of them did great.
Yep.
Jeremy's like, I can't believe I'm doing this. Jeremy killed.
Yeah.
They did great. And like even Don Jameson's like, who's a fantastic comedian. He usually goes right after the guests, and he's always like, it's hard to follow the guests. They kill. It's really hard. But we work with them. We spend tons of time with them on their sets. They don't just figure it out and get up there. We work with you for a while. Like we start a month before the show. We do the beginning stages of the process of getting that set together. So there's a process, and I think people don't really know that, but the audience doesn't need to know.
Yeah.
We don't want them to know.
But you're not chucking them in the deep end, which is really good.
No, I would never. I wouldn't let you go up. Because everyone's like, are they going to bomb? Are they going to bomb? I go, no. And they go, how do you know they're not going to bomb? I go, because I wouldn't let them on the show.
Because I won't set them up for that.
I would not want why would you want someone to fail? That's boring.
Yeah.
Let's go kill it. And everyone does. Everyone has a good time.
Yeah, I remember hearing that many, many years ago, as the X Games was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I remember watching one of, I think, like the Burt skateboard competitions, and the announcers were saying that exact same thing. They're like, the cool thing about this community is like, you watch your mate go up there and like shred. You don't want them to like be hitting like tricks and then just falling down on their face afterwards. Like, you just want to see them kill it. That's why everybody gets done their set, and it's just high fives and fist bumps and all that kind of stuff. But also speaking of Don, we saw him last night with you and Hal Sparks at Rare Hair.
That was fun. I was like, how are all three of us going to do this? Because because Hal's got a lot to say.
Yes.
So I'm like, how are we all going to do this? It was so much fun. We figured it out. We're all so different.
Yep.
Very different. And we had a good time. We're all friends. So, and we like working together. So yeah, that was really fun.
Before Hal's first song, you were like, I want to welcome up my colleague here to do the first singing for him tonight, Don Jameson. Nope, just kidding. Hal Sparks. Where it was
like, Don is going to sing?
You know what's funny is everyone started cheering, and then when I go, nope, it's Hal Sparks, and then Hal goes, okay, it got cool. I was like, whoa, what was that? But I think a lot of people don't realize what a friggin' awesome singer he is.
So good, yeah.
He does the Nerd Halen, his band. He sings all three lead singers' songs. Like, no one does that.
It's so good.
He does Gary Sharon's song, too.
He's known Psycho Steve forever, so he's been on a couple times.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's been a special guest.
Yeah, no, Hal's an amazing singer, and I think a lot of people just don't know that because he's a TV star and he's an actor and he's a comedian. So yeah, that's fun.
They don't think of him as the singer.
No. Well, I mean, of course, you've got Spider-Man and Queer Eye and just all that kind of fun stuff. Plus, he's very active on like X and Twitter with like his political commentary and stuff like that. So he definitely rocks out with that. Angel, let's kick it over to you, my friend.
Definitely,
Yeah, let's stop talking about Hal.
Talking about Courtney.
What's about tomorrow night?
What's up?
Show tomorrow.
Let's talk about tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night, we're doing a comedy show. We're doing it a little bit different. This is an all-star show. Chris Kale from Five Finger Death Punch is on our show. I think they already did your show, right, Chris?
Later.
Oh, they're doing it later.
Yeah.
He's a naturally funny guy. The first time I worked with him was actually on Craig's 50th birthday roast. I put the whole thing together. We did it in Hawaii. And I wrote a thing with Chris that they were on tour with Metallica in some massive stadium in the UK when he filmed his stuff. And we had like little segments, and then I cut in like Craig on Sex and the City to it and whatever, but we had so much fun writing it, and I was like, man, Chris would be really good at stand-up. So Craig asked him, to do the show. That Craig couldn't make that show in Vegas, he was on the road, but we did a show in Vegas with him, and he was great. He was super funny, and he writes his own stuff. And he's been doing stand-up for like the last few years. I was saying, you're doing more shows than I am. Like he's like up there in comedy clubs. He's like at major clubs doing his thing. And he's doing great. He's really funny and fun, and he's got, his jokes just for this crowd. And oh my God, there's Ron Keogh. I love Ron Keogh. And he's it's super fun.
If a hug is necessary, we will allow it.
No, we had one last time. But yeah, so yeah, no, he's great. It's going to be super fun, and I'm going to host it. And then I got 3 headliners after that. I got 3, so you can't really beat that.
How did comedy become a thing for yourself?
I was a dork, a nerd, I like nerdy things. No one here relates to that. And then I always tell Chris, I'm like, I found my planet. This is my planet. I've been looking. Yeah, I was just kind of a dorky. I was a theater nerd. I was a theater geek, just always was kind of goofy. So, and I admired stand-up. And like when we'd have like sleepovers and all the girls wanted to rent rom-coms, I wanted to rent stand-up specials.
Nice.
And watch them. So I've seen like many, and that's what made me want to do it.
Well, let's watch The Notebook tonight. I'd really rather not. Can we watch Richard Pryor instead?
Basically, yeah. I mean, I wanted to learn as much as I could, and I watched so much stand-up before I actually got on stage. I watched a lot and went to a lot of shows. And I was like, I don't know if I can do that. I'm afraid. And then I had like a weird, almost near-death experience. It was very scary with a stalker, very scary. And when that happened, I was like, well, life's short. I'm doing stand-up. And I got on stage a month later.
Oh, wow.
And that was in 1996.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Was there any particular comedians that you really gravitated to as like someone you were a fan of?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like Carol Leifer's my idol. And Dana Gould's one of my favorite comedians. I just love him. He's so funny. I got to work with him once at the Improv. When I used to host weekends, and when it was his weekend, I was like, can I please, I want to be with Dana Gould? And then there were like 800 people want Dana Gould, and I was like, please. So I got to work with him, but yeah, so that was a big deal. But yeah, I was on the road and at the clubs and, doing all that stuff, and then I lean more into writing. I write, I'd say 90% of the time, and then perform about 10% of the time.
Oh.
So, and when I do, it's at stuff like this, or I do like wine shows, weirdly. Wine and rock and roll, that's like my thing. And casinos. Wine, casinos, rock and roll. That's me. So, yeah, so mostly writing, but I like performing, especially at things like this, because the crowds are so fun. They're better than a comedy club crowd.
For sure. Right back to you, brother.
How are the crowds, how are the crowds different when you go places? Compared, let's say a big city compared to a small town.
Oh, small towns, always better. Because in a big city, you have tourists, and you don't know where. Everybody's all over the place, spread out. You have people from everywhere. It's hard. That's why New York City comics are some of the best in the country, because if you can do well in that crowd, you're going to be a really good comedian. LA is kind of weird and all over the place, but smaller towns are easier because everyone lives there or nearby. So you can kind of tailor things to what you know about that town, or when you do a college. When I used to do a lot of colleges before I was old, you read the paper from the college, you ask the students as much stuff as possible, get to know as much as you can before the show, and you have to freshly write things for those things, those events. I'm going to be writing stuff today and tomorrow for tomorrow night. You kind of got to have fresh stuff when it's a specialized show.
Like Angel and I talk to bands all the time about their upcoming records or their writing time for upcoming records and new songs. How does that work for yourself? And how do you look at it for comedians in general? When you have shows coming up, do you find that a larger time frame of crafting your routine is better, or do you like to be well, I'm performing on Saturday, so from Sunday to Thursday before the show is when I can really work my brain to it? Do you have a particular style for it?
For Monsters of Rock, I started writing stuff a month and a half before. I just started. And then I put it away, and then I go back 2 weeks later and look at it. And then put it away and come back 2 weeks later and look at it. And then I look at it on the ship and go through it. And then I pick and choose what I'm going to do. So I'm probably going to reuse some of those jokes tomorrow because they'll fit for this crowd. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the people coming weren't on the cruise. Yeah. They didn't see the show, so it'll be new to them. Mm-hmm. And then I'll write stuff based on today, like what happened today. I mean, nothing really totally hilarious, I guess, but it's just really more fun than anything. But I'm sure I'll come up with something.
Yeah, because there's definitely...
still young.
Oh, yeah. I mean, because there's definitely certain jokes that'll work for a crowd and stuff like that. Like, one of my favorite jokes that Don busts out periodically is his joke about the Poison out the album cover for Poison.
Yeah, we jerked off to those chicks.
Exactly,
yeah.
And then only once in a while after that.
Yeah.
So it works. It works for those crowds for sure. Right back over to you, my friend.
I forgot what I was going to ask.
That's all right. That's all right. When you're looking at something like Rare Hair last night, where you're working more as an MC host, where the jokes still apply, versus something like Backlines and Punchlines, where it's comedy driven dominantly from top to bottom, do you operate somewhat differently on those different formats?
Yeah, you go. I mean, it's more go with the flow. Like when I host, I watch and see what's happening, and stuff will go through my head about like I want to make this joke, and then we'll like say something to each other before. I'll be like, I have a joke about this, can I do it? And then your pal's like, all right, I'm gonna say that, cool. We just do that, and everyone's like, cool, like you just go, yeah, I don't have a joke, so you go, like whatever. So I said, okay, I have this joke I want to do about, this is about the Jimi Hendrix song. I was like, I don't know if you guys know Little Wing, but that was Ed Sheeran. And like a couple people laugh, but really no one really listens to us, and we know that. So we know everybody starts talking to each other between the songs, so it doesn't really matter what we're saying as long as we get everybody's names right, and we vamp as long as we can till they're ready, and you kind of have the corner of your eye when you know people are ready. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you just ask, but yeah, I guess like jokes go through your head before you go up there and you try to figure it out. That's what you do when you're hosting. You watch the person's set. I do. Yeah. And then I try to find something to play off of them. Not me, that's supportive of what they did, unless it's just really bad and you have to address it.
Yeah. Well, and there's also certain things too where it comes to like obviously acting on the fly, which of course you definitely still have to do as a comedy performer when you're doing a comedy show. But even just in the MC stuff, I've got some experience hosting shows as well, so I understand that. But even like last night, you had, I forget his name off the top of my head, but you had the gentleman that performed like for a while as the lead singer in the Leather Jacket, who did like the Black Sabbath cover and the Cats and Boots songs, where it seemed Joel, where it seemed like at first he was gonna go off stage, and they're like, "What? Do you want to sing another song?" And so then the back line was changing up a little bit, and then Joel just kind of and stayed on and sang a little bit longer, and where it seemed like who's fronting the next thing, it was like, well, we're not.
Oh, when I didn't know that the Rush song was an instrumental.
Right.
I'm like, who is singing this? Come on now. And then they're like, it's an instrumental. I'm like, I didn't know that. I'm like, and Don's like, can I go up and make fun of you for not knowing? Or Hal loves to make fun of me. I forget which one of them was going to say, can I go up and make fun of you for not knowing that's an instrumental? And I said, no. But no, actually, that's not true. I said, yeah, of course. And then Don's like, who sings that, Courtney? And I'm like, Rush? The Rush Hour? I'm like, I don't know. So,
but not only just that, you also had you also had where it was like, I think it was like one more song to fill, and it was like, well, you're already still on stage with a mic in your hand if you just want to roll, and then he rolled.
I don't think that was me, but someone else must have said that.
It was something. It was something. It was not like specific. I just meant in the MC.
Oh, right.
Noticing with the changeover. Yeah. That wasn't specific to you.
Right.
I just mean like realizing like, you know what, you're already up here with a mic, and we're seem to have a disconnect on our singer. So if you're comfortable, the mic's still in your hand.
Right, but it was him for the set. Right,
yeah.
But the audience doesn't know that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's super fun. I think I went up after and said, who needs a singer? You don't even need one. Like you just play around. And I mean, I was flirting with Billy Sheehan, talking about how hot he is, and he's like, what? And I go, I'm making a fool out of myself, and I don't care. And then later I was like, thanks for being a good sport about that. And he goes, oh, God, no. It was funny. He's like, I don't care.
It was fantastic.
Yeah, he doesn't care. He was like, I'm sorry, I'm going to stop saying you're hot, Billy. Like, what man's going to be like, stop that?
I loved when you were like, oh, why does that man need to play bass when he can front the band?
Yeah, it was like Billy Sans bass. I like it. But yeah, because on the Mr. Big show, they all switch parts, and that's kind of fun to watch. So then
Martin Lotnick was talking about that because when he got to play for Billy to sing, because he was talking about how Mr. Big do that.
Yeah. So it's fun. But yeah, no, he's a totally good sport.
Angel, right back to you, my man.
In your opinion, what makes a good comedian? In your opinion,
I think. Well, there's so many different kinds of comedy, and everybody has a different sense of humor. But as a comedian watching comedians, I really appreciate people who have fun on stage and just are having a good time and who are in the moment. Like, I really like watching that. Like, that was actually some really good advice Hal gave me. He's like, stop making your set list. Just go up there. And I go, I need my set list. He goes, you don't need your set list. You're funnier without a set list. I was like, okay. And he's kind of right. I had better sets when I wasn't thinking about what was next. So I really like seeing comics like that. They can move around, change it up. But then again, I like comics that are very, very stylized and have like really specific jokes that they, like Taylor Tomlinson, like she just is so tight. And her tags are just boom, 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 boom. And you know those are written very specifically. She memorizes it word for word. There's no switching it up. And I respect that too. And I'm like, wow, that's really good. But like, we don't go, sometimes we'll laugh. But usually if because we're always in the back, we'll turn together and go, that's a good joke. That's a good joke.
Matt Rife has grown on me over the years because of these clips I see of him just simply playing off the crowd.
That's really hard. I mean, I do a little bit of that. But like Matt, like Jessica Curson, like there's just some really great crowd work. And that is an art form. That is very hard, but she has a formula, and I see it now, and it's brilliant.
Yeah, Megan and I went out not that long ago because we're both big Brian Posehn fans.
Oh, Brian's great.
And so I took her to her first Brian show, and she was like, this is so fun.
He's very funny. Yeah.
So we definitely like that. Angel, anything final from yourself, my friend, before we let Courtney shop?
Just say appreciate your time. Loved you last night with the show. That was really all fun to see.
It was really fun. We had fun.
And we had fun as well, just watching.
And we love this, and one of our biggest things is always that you had a good time talking, coming on the show, and you always felt respected and just enjoyed yourself.
No, I totally know you guys. I was like, all right, cool.
So, no, we're definitely looking forward to having you. And we'll have to sync up a schedule sometime where you can just come on the show traditional style where there's so much